A little bit about weather balloons. This was a video that was posted on Twitter from the National Weather Service in El Paso, Texas. And you can see one of their meteorologists taking the weather balloon and sending it up. And, you know, the weather balloon gets all the credit, but really it's the vehicle. It's the carrier that takes that little white box you see there. That's called a radioson, and that has a whole bunch of weather instruments in it. So let's talk about a weather balloon. Now, you know, we actually talked about this several months ago, but I kind of wanted to bring it back because these are kind of cool. So again, these balloons are often made out of latex or some sort of rubber material, and they're often filled with hydrogen or helium. Most offices use hydrogen instead of helium now, but they rise to about 100,000 feet, and the balloon expands as it rises further up into the atmosphere. Eventually, the balloon bursts once it reaches about 100,000 feet, and the balloon and the radioson there falls to the ground. Well, that little triangle thing right there is called a parachute, and that's there to protect it because the terminal velocity of a falling radioson is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100 miles an hour. Yeah, if you get hit with one of those, it's not going to feel good. So that's to protect it, but also when it comes down. Now, the radioson measures temperature, dew point, pressure, and wind. This is what it's called when the data comes back. It's called a skew-T diagram. Skew temperature, because if you notice, the red line here shows you the temperature, and again, the higher up you go, the cooler it gets. But notice how that red line is skewed. That's why it's called a skew-T. Meteorologists are very clever when it comes to naming things. But again, you don't need to know all this data, but this is what we look at on a day-to-day basis, and this is how we make our forecast. This is just one piece of the data we look at. And Karen, Amanda, knowing what's going on in the upper layers of the atmosphere is incredibly important, especially when it comes to severe weather, because this is where a lot of the instability comes from, is the upper layers. Karen, Amanda?
Now, how often do they recover those little white boxes? Ever?
Most of the time they're lost out in ocean or in wooded areas.
Yeah.
There actually is an envelope where, you know, if you find it, you can actually mail it back to the Weather Service office, and then, you know, they can actually, you know, send it out again.
Yeah, you can figure out what it is. That's cool. Thanks, Dakota.